Welcome to the show, Nadine. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I would love if you could give our listeners a little bio of who you are and where in the world you are currently joining me from today.
Well, I'm joining you from the lovely Haliburton Highlands in Ontario, Canada. So it's like a forest area by just south of Algonquin Park, which is one of Canada's largest southern parks.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful, beautiful area.
And I did grow up, like we had a summer cottage in this area, so it's very dear to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I had a lot of my beginnings with
Yeah.
the botanicals. And it was the forest all around there that really inspired me. Like, sure, I was this, girl growing up in the 80s and had all kinds of fun with makeup and bottles of perfumes, but it was really that pull to nature that really, like, I was so fascinated by and wanted to, once I learned how to formulate and create, it was really like bringing the nature into all the things that we are applying to our bodies rather than all those, bottles of chemicals from the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're the creator and the CEO of Living Libations, but I'm curious if we can even start right at the start. You said you had a summer cottage out in that area. Was health and wellness part of your childhood growing up? Were your parents super into it, or was there a catalyst in your life that led you to going down more of a holistic path?
Yeah, at first, I mean, everything was just really just normal, just sort of 80s normal, all that standard food, everything. But in grade 9, had a rare self-directed learning moment, and we were doing a science fair project where we could just do our own topic. And at the library, I found this book on making cosmetics and perfumery, which really spoke to me because, at home, I was always just mixing and concocting. Like, again, I would be mixing already made perfumes and putting them together, or smashing the white eyeshadow into lip balm to make like white lipstick or whatever. So I was just playing with things that already existed. But it was so fascinating because there was a lot less information then. And I didn't know because kind of the roots or the history of perfume. They're just these sort of exotic bottles. But then when I read the history and its connection to like distillation in ancient Egypt, or also the island of Cyprus, where some of the earliest perfume vessels were found, and that just so resonated with me. Plus, my great grandfather had had a lot to, he was a archaeologist in Egypt. He was also an illustrator. He did some work with Howard Carter, who later went on to discover the tomb of Tutankhamun. And he'd done illustrations of blue lotuses. And so I just found that whole history of Egypt fascinating. And of course, so many girls are fascinated by Cleopatra and her beauty secrets. And she had like a whole, I guess, whatever version was a bathroom then. So she had her sort of preparation room. And then beside that was a whole still distillation room where fresh rose water would be prepared, and the priest would make like unguents and ointments. And so I found that so fascinating. And the book spoke about the distillation process. I mean, we didn't even know perfume ingredients where they came from back then. Although, I mean, they're not really coming from a rose, even if it said it had rose in the perfume, it's all syntheticized. Um, However, I just was like so fascinated that plants were distilled to make these things, or pressed flowers or layered in between fat. And so I found that fascinating. I did the science fair project. And oh yeah, sorry, the book said that there's these things called essential oils, and that's what they are today. That's what they were distilling before, and that you could probably find them at the health food store. So we drove to the big city with the health food store, and that's where I got my first whiff of like jasmine, ylang ylang, orange, and even in that 80s scentscape of like watermelon bubblegum and like Glade air fresheners, even though that was sort of the theme, I was smelling those in that moment. And I didn't understand the difference between really natural and synthetic, but it really spoke to me. Like when I smelled that jasmine, I was like, this is so different than any perfume. And then I, just continued my teenage life. The Body Shop came into existence. It was like, we thought it was natural. Then I get to university, and that's when I really start looking at like what I'm eating, because now I have to kind of fend for myself, right? Make my own food. And I had this health food store that I would walk by every day. It was a very sweet little health food store in a house that had been converted. It was called Grains and Beans and Things. So eventually I'm in there buying every book and every bean and really getting into like making my own food. And when I would skip school, I was watching Donahue one day, and they were talking about, like, Lisa Bonet was on there and talking about the whole thing with environment and food production. And it was just so mind blowing, because that was really new then. We didn't we didn't know that. I think we know that now. And so it was sort of those worlds colliding with like, oh my God, I'm going to make my own food, go to the farmer's market. I was taking courses outside of school on like making like hijiki seaweed salads and how to make nut milks. This is like back in 1990. And then there was so many good books at that store. And one of them was about reading, like it dissected how do you read a label at the supermarket. It was fascinating, right? Like all the tricks of the trade. White, like brown sugar was white sugar with molasses. All bran had like basically cardboard fiber in it. I'm kind of exaggerating, but I'm not. I just can't remember what that fiber was. And so you're seeing that, or secondary ingredients, like on a soup can. If it said cheese, well, maybe there's like 10 other ingredients in the cheese. It's not listed, blah, blah, blah. So that made me look at my cosmetics and, all those labels that you read, like in the bathtub or whatever. And it was obviously back then just like chemical, chemical, chemical. You just thought that's what skincare was. And then I realized I'm looking at the Body Shop stuff, and I'm like, there's not the fuzzy peach bath oil doesn't have any peach in it. The dewberry is not a plant. The cucumber face toner never saw a cucumber. So that was really fascinating. But then I was like, oh, it was like amazing, because then I had this almost excuse to make all my own cosmetics, which I think is what I always wanted to do anyway, since I was a little girl, mushing geranium petals into mud and applying them all over my body before I jumped into the lake. So I was very happy to discover that. And then I just so glad I lived on my own. And then I was able to like just, convert my kitchen and just start making things like perfumes, bath oils, lip balms, creams, lotion, and I would make like special healing oils for eczema, or like waitress legs for getting rid of spider veins. And I was like putting lip balm in recycled film canisters, recycling bottles, and eventually kind of came up with this little line that I would sell to like family and friends. And I'm reading books, from the 1800s and ones from the 1900s, like that's what, the 1950s, 60s, 70s, any book I could find on aromatherapy. And I'm also like really reading about things that I can't get access to, like angelica root or lemon verbena. They're not that rare, but they were back then, not something common in a health food store. And so then I just started like writing distillers all around the world. Luckily, university taught me about like research and how to do that in the old school way before the internet. And then I just started getting samples in from all these different distillers and farmers around the world. And the quality was mind blowing. Like, even basic oils like a tea tree or a bergamot or lavender were just like so much more delicious and subtle. So then sort of learning about all the nuances between fake and genuine essential oils, and then even within what's authentic and genuine, what are the nuances there, what makes a better oil, where is it growing, how's it harvested, like that whole thing. And then I started when I was in university importing all these raw materials into Canada. And then then I graduated and was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this more. So I
I love
opened up like Canada's first full, North America really is first full aromatherapy concept store. Had a blending bar where we do like custom perfumes, and we sold over 100 different essential oils, like by the drop. You could come in with your bottle or fill it there. Yeah.
Wow, I love it.
So
First of
that's
all,
how it
too,
all
like
started.
I'm so impressed in college that you were making your own food. I feel like in college it was like impressive if I could have a stir fry. It was like, guys, I'm having a stir fry. Like I'm look at me being all healthy over here. So I think that's incredible. And I love your story and just kind of like following the path of like, when you were younger, you were really into cosmetics. And it's funny because I feel like looking back now too, it's the same thing. Like I used to love playing in my mom's like perfume. Like she had that
Yeah.
red door perfume. Do you
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the red door. And now if I smelt it, I'd be like
Oh, me too.
so overwhelming. I can't even go if I have to go to a mall.
Oh, I do not go to a mall. I
I
do
know.
not. Yeah, I can't.
It's like and like Bath and Body Works is always at the entrance that I enter, and it's like
Oh, oh,
so
yeah.
overwhelming to like go into places like that. And and now that I'm more in the holistic natural world, yeah, it's just those types of scents are so overpowering, and it's amazing to see what is natural and like all these modalities that can come to you from natural healing and from natural
Mhm.
products and stuff like that.
Well, that, if I may say, like that's also like in those books, and like, yes, I was making all the cosmetics, but in that same learning period, I was also learning about, I guess, really early biohacking, so to speak. Because I was just like, for the first time, seeing like, oh, if I do this, this affects this in my body. And then some of the books I got, one was like this, he wrote a few books. I can't remember his name, sorry. But How to Get Well, Natural Swedish Beauty Secrets. Awesome books. And that, like, How to Get Well was sort of this A to Z of all these common ailments that obviously we were all familiar with growing up. So back in that day, stomach ache, Pepto-Bismol, headache, Tylenol, aspirin. That was the medicine cabinet. And I never had anything major with me, but just so many like little things that just they couldn't solve. You know what I mean? Like you'd be like, I mean, one time I had a stomach ache and they literally almost tried to do surgery. Like, you know what I
Oh,
mean? Like as a kid. So you're just seeing
yeah.
like, or I remember having another digestive, and the doctor, like they just had no solutions. So you kind of just seeing like that reality too. Like, I mean, I'm just a little girl, but I'm like, why are we, like, what is that? Who is this strange man? Like, why so just sort of like that always seemed awkward. But then really seeing like, oh, headaches are probably caused from constipation, or acne is like, probably like digestive or hormonal stuff. So I was getting into that as well. And that's why then I would make blends, yes, quote unquote cosmetic, but then like, what are these like, little things that we can make that help with those symptoms, or perhaps get to the root of the problem in a new way. And so that's what I really liked about that time as well, is just sort of seeing like the effects that you can have on the body through doing different things, through, food, water, what we're applying to it, what we're doing. And so that was really good too.
Well, and it's something I don't think people genuinely think about is what we put on our body has such a reciprocal effect in the rest of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's maybe a bit more of an obvious, like if we have acne, maybe it's something that we're putting on that's making it worse. But we also now know that there's like this gut connection, and like maybe what your nutrition is also leading to that. But we don't always make that connection between like constipation and headaches. Maybe it's more because we're dehydrated than anything.
Right. Which would also cause some constipation.
Exactly. So I want to talk about what were some of those first, maybe subtle and larger changes that you noticed in your own body when you started to apply these products that you were making. What did these big changes and maybe like more subtle changes that you noticed from switching from conventional, let's call it beauty and skincare?
Mm-hmm. Well, on one level, my conventional moment was short in a way, because like I didn't obviously do much as like a little kid, I'm having a bath, shampooing, whatever. So it's sort of this 5-year window, and I've never looked back. So there, I was already, I think, in good health, good skin, luckily. Um, but what I did endeavor to do was sort of like every kind of crevice, or where are we looking I mean, sorry, what are we taking care of in our body? What are we told to put there? And like, what is actually going to be good or the reverse? And can I make that? So, deodorant, it's like not necessarily you have to have that, but it's sort of like, so what are the things that society is saying we need on our body, right? So deodorant or brushing our teeth, so I'm not, because I didn't want to buy anything from that, or like, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at it's all, that's when you're even seeing, like, even at the health food store, there's a level of like purity or quality of ingredients that just isn't cutting it. So that was sort of more like taking stock and then like going through the body. And so I don't know if there was anything sort of major, because there wasn't anything major to overcome, but then just like feeling and knowing that that was like a deeper care for my body, and that there wasn't a negative or a reactionary response from something I was applying, if that makes sense. But what I did see is it also help a lot of other people with issues that like I didn't have. So for the spider veins or the eczema or psoriasis or acne, dandruff, all those things. And just sort of finding out like what would be, what's that formula? What does that product need to be and do in the body? And then, yeah, and then eliminating sort of other areas of assault, so to speak, like what's the purity of the water coming out? How do we deal with the chlorine or the fluoride? And just sort of really assessing my life and where I could, turn it to something that was botanical, that was actually going to get to the root of the problems, or also just be a celebratory thing, like making gorgeous perfumes that are just like so beautiful and just like so beautiful to wear, but not really solving any issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sticking with this theme of, like a reciprocal effect in our bodies, I would love if you can talk about this connection between skin detoxing and your immunity
Mhm.
and how it all plays together with our skin and our gut health.
Yeah, so really like we're people in skin, but we're really these, like, I think of the skin as sort of this moist envelope of the soul. And yet it's also teeming with trillions of bacteria. We've got our cells, and then we have just bacteria, which actually, I didn't know. We didn't know about the bacteria really back in the 90s, the good beneficial bacteria. But the skin is, as many know, like one of our largest organs. So is our muscle system, which is connected to our skin. But there's this whole microbiome on our skin, that there's a microbiome in our guts, and that just sort of means the collection of bacteria. And what we now know is that the bacterial life is just as influential, potent, and essential as our cellular life. And the skin microbiome is different than the gut microbiome, yet they're all connected, obviously. We've got a mouth microbiome, the ear, nose, throat. Yoni has a microbiome, the skin, full microbiome, but it's going to be different. Like your armpits are going to have a different microbiome than the palms of your hand, which don't have much. Kind of, well, I guess there's so much action there. And so by taking care of our microbiome, we're taking care of our skin. And so we don't want to be putting things on our skin topically that are going to mess with or mutate the bacterial species in the microbiome. And that really, I mean, most common ingredients are going to be affecting the microbiome. Not to mention, then that's going into your bloodstream, which would eventually affect the gut microbiome on that level as well. So we want to use things that are always compatible with our microbiome and work to allow it to thrive. Because what we now know too is that there is good bacteria, beneficial bacteria, and that's sort of most of our bacteria are beneficial and good. Otherwise, we wouldn't be alive. It's not exactly scientific, but I kind of think of like, sort of like an 80-20 rule, where you want like, so like most of the bacteria in the body is good and it's doing the job, and it's taking care of the pathogens, and it's preventing them from sort of building up, congregating, and, taking over the body. So we can still apply that to that's happening in our gut or on top of our skin or like in our skin and in our mouths. And so whatever we do, we want to always work with the microbiome. And for beauty, we actually want to allow the bacteria to be our beautician. as, gross as that may sound, as a nation, we've sort of like totally been over exfoliating, and chemical peels and all those things are really decimating the microbiome on the skin, which we need for, if you want to call it anti-aging, but just to have like good skin, healthy skin, not having eczema, psoriasis, acne. That's part of the program. So that's really key. And yeah, then we just want to think of things that are going to harmonize with that, and also including the oral microbiome, because most strep causes cavities. Most people have that in their mouth, but not everybody has cavities. And so what researchers feel is that we're missing some of our bacterial species. And so something like strep could be missing its ancient sort of bacterial buddies that help keep it in check in people that strep becomes a problem for. So things like essential oils, which is really cool, because I love this palette that I work with. And we didn't know all that back then, but now what we know is that things like essential oils can act as quorum sensing inhibitors, QSI for short. And all that means is that it's inhibiting the quorum sensing, which is the communication systems of the pathogens. So for oral care, for example, essential oils like clove, tea tree, frankincense, cinnamon, all in different varying degrees, they're all going to be different. They're able to clean up the pathogenic bacteria while being in balance with the beneficial bacteria. Whereas like most modern medicine was coming out of this sort of more germ warfare theory, where it's just like, kill it all the bacteria. But now we know we need that beneficial stuff. And so it's something like an antibiotic is sort of this, it's antibiotic, anti-life. It's sort of this indiscriminate assassin of all the bacteria. And while they may be necessary sometimes, we're way overusing them. It's in the food supply, and it really is mutating the species of our bacteria and not allowing our gut microbiome or skin microbiome to thrive. And so the same thing topically, the benzoyl peroxide, the synthetic alcohol toners, the Cetaphil acne face wash, all of that is mutating the skin's microbiome. And then what we're also learning now is that things like surfactants, even if they're like a mild foaming cleanser that seems more gentle than, I don't know, whatever you'd get at the drugstore, but the synthetic surfactants lodge themselves into the stratum corneum. And that's what they can see now in a microscope. And the stratum corneum is the top layer of the skin. And so what happens is they kind of become like these surfactant splinters in the stratum corneum, and then they don't dislodge with rinsing with water or washing your face. They build up there microscopically over time, and then that can lead to things like eczema, psoriasis, melasma, hyperpigmentation, or just like, just imbalance on the skin. So it is, it's key to keep it simple. And even if you did, obviously we make things, but if you just like ditched whatever program you had and like use like organic jojoba or olive oil for the rest of your life just to take care of your skin, you'd be like 1,000 times better off than buying anything from the beauty counter or the drugstore.
Yeah, well, one of the questions I had was, what is one ingredient that you see in conventional
Mm,
skincare or beauty products that you think is messing with our microbiome? But
right.
you
Yeah.
spoke so
Well, the
eloquently.
surfactants, I
Yeah.
think. And then in like creams and stuff, I mean, there's so many. You've got like processed like soy oils, silicones, petroleum, and it's like, 100 different names and derivatives. There's coal tar and things, the pegs, the colors, on and on.
Yeah.
And then in natural skincare, quote unquote, there would be things like, then there's ingredient quality choices. So are the oils like, how are they made? Are they like, like a mazola, the process for like a canola mazola is like horrendous.
Yeah.
Bleached, deodorized, winterized, and, and they're not healthy on any level. So you're already ingesting completely rancid oils. And then those rancid omega-6s are going into the cells. Now with natural, you've got issues with things like grapeseed oil, which really is usually always solvent processed, because if it wasn't, it would be very green and glommy. Wouldn't be like how you buy it. Almond oil, usually rancid, usually cut, usually not almond oil. And the almonds kind of need a break right now. And it's really not that good of a skin. I mean, of an oil for the skin. Peach kernel, that's also rancid. Is the olive oil real? Are the essential oils real? So a natural product can also just be not good either.
I would
you know.
love if you could talk about, you said simplifying your
Mm-hmm.
routine. Maybe you can talk about what would be an ideal amount of steps and maybe what type of products, because sometimes we see these viralities of like the 12-step skincare routine, and
Oh
I've
yeah.
always been like, who has time for 12
I
steps?
know.
Like I love a good extra step here and there, but 12 steps every day, like I'd
Yeah.
start my morning, start my skincare, and then it would be time to do my wind down routine at the end of it. So I
Yeah.
would love if you could talk about maybe what you think is like the perfect amount of steps and the products to use within these steps.
Mm-hmm. Well, first, just obviously I've made everything for every part of the body. And all, like, we've got our best skin evers, the dewdrops. However, putting that aside, if you didn't know me and or you're like on a total budget, like what would you need? So you could clean out your bathroom. I talk about this in Renegade Beauty. And if you got like an aloe vera plant, which are very stable and like they're hard to kill. So you don't really need a green thumb, and you keep it in your bathroom. They don't even need that much sunlight, it seems. But anyway, if you had like a bottle of beautiful just spring water, that it would last a while because you're not going to drink it. You just put it in a spray bottle and pour that in, a bottle of apple cider vinegar, and then like baking soda, and then like a beautiful, totally high quality, true organic olive oil or a jojoba. You could also do a coconut, but you'd want to probably cut that 60-40 with the or 30-70, whatever, something around there. It doesn't have to be exact, but with the olive or the jojoba. You could always throw in a bottle of like real frankincense. But I mean, you could literally you're buying those all in like liters. That would literally last you many of those things, like, except for the water, like years or a year. You know what I mean? So like you could definitely get all that under $100. Any budget, not any budget, obviously, but if you have $100, you could get that. And so I'm just saying like that, and you would be set up and you'd be far better off than any of the stuff that we're putting on our faces. So I just want to know that it's possible, and you don't necessarily, have to venture over to Living Libations, but it is beautiful over there. So there's that being said, I'm also not into like a 12-step program to wash my face. And when I was like, because again, so I'm back, I'm like 20, and I'm trying to find like, how are we washing our face? Like, I didn't want to use synthetic surfactants then either. We didn't know it was making the splinters back then, but I knew I didn't want to use it. So, looking and researching, and what I found was, how we used to wash our skin, which really spoke to me, which was with oil. So, I mean, oil cleansing has become popular in the last decade. But of course, a lot of that's with petroleum, oils, silicone, soy, or like, the rancid natural oils. So, like ancient Berber women of Morocco, you've got like Turkish baths, Roman baths, ancient Chinese culture, the Egyptians, they're all using various types of fat, from crocodile fat in Egypt to olive oil with the Mediterranean, like Turkish baths and stuff. So lubing up the skin with oil, they also use, a few cultures use different types of tools, kind of like our gua sha now, like that was one of them, but they were made out of different things: stone, horn, metal. The Turkish would call it a strigil, and it's a kind of like a scraping tool. And then you're lubing up the whole body with oil. And then you're taking that strigil or the gua sha and you're oiling the body and then removing it a bit with that thing. Because sort of the strigil is like, think of a back of a butter knife and running that over. So all that's like lifting and picking up. So what you can do that at home with a cloth or whatever. But yeah, for the face, what you're doing is, wetting it with water, then just getting like a cotton round or a little bit of a patch on a face cloth. It's got that perfect classic terry texture is really all you need for that light exfoliation daily. And then you wet a patch, you squirt it with oil, and then you just or on the cotton pad, you're rubbing that over your face, splash it with water one more time, add one more drop to your hand, and then just rub it in and you're done. That's it.
Yeah, it's so simple. It's funny. So I actually use your sea buckthorn
Best skin ever.
best skin ever oil,
Yes.
and it's it really makes such a difference. Like I went through a bunch of different skincare before. I tried the cleansing balms, I was trying the
Mm.
gels, I was trying uh, all these different things, and it's even though my skin would feel clean afterwards, I was like, there's this tightness that I can't really get rid of. And I would put, creams and stuff back on and it would kind of go away. But I was always like, I don't feel like the skin should feel stripped
Yeah,
afterwards.
because there is a stripping and it's sort of this catch 22 of, from the benzoyl peroxide or the
Yeah.
I was grown up with the Clinique toner, which is just synthetic alcohol. Like, oh, anyway, yeah. And so you're stripping the
Hmm.
lipid barrier, it's John corneum, and then you're going to put on the lube afterwards of the cream. And so, you're kind of putting it on top of already microbiome disruption.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's made such a difference to use that. And then my skin just it feels so like bouncy still and plump. And then, I've really cut down a lot on my skincare routine. It's a very simple skincare routine, but it almost takes a moment to wrap your head around because there is so much that is marketed to us as like you need the toners, you need the
Oh,
sprays,
yeah.
you need all these different serums, and like cycling is a thing now. And I'm like, I feel like we've just so
No.
overcomplicated everything.
Oh, yeah, it is so overcomplicated because everybody's vying for every square inch of your skin to market it to that kind of real estate. And yeah, we have it's beautiful. I mean, it's just thousands and thousands of people that have transformed their skin through using things like the best skin ever. Of course, the sea buckthorn best skin ever is like all-time popular, most popular one. It was the first one. And yeah, we're really complicating things and actually messing it up. So we think, and we're doing that good effort, but it is kind of messing things up. But what can happen when you start using something like the best skin ever is even people that have had cystic acne for a decade, they start to see that improvement, one day, 2 days, 3 weeks later. Often it's really getting cleared up. Then the scars are starting to go away. And it's oil, which for many people with acne, especially cystic acne, are like, are you kidding me? But there's people that will go, okay, I'm going to trust that. And they dive in. And it really does give them what they need and really helps to solve things. And then, we get emails about women just like, oh my God, I can leave the house without makeup now. And so I just love, again, wear makeup, it doesn't matter, but how great that we can get the confidence back to feel good in our own skin.
So what would you do after that cleanser? Are you adding in a serum and a moisturizer? Are you doing one or the other? What would be those next steps that you would do?
Well, for generally, that's literally all you have to do. And I mean, for guys, they love that. I mean, if they're even going to do anything, it's just one more step. So you can literally then just use that drop of best ever after the rinse to apply, just to get it all juicy again. And you know what? While you're doing it, because you're applying with your hands, take a minute. Instead of the 12 steps of applying 12 different things, take a few minutes and then just really rock it into take a moment to kind of massage, engage with your skin, because we don't move our skin enough either, in a way. I mean, the body skin gets a bit of movement if we are moving, but we want to just get in there and get to know the skin and the face. But really, that's simply all you could do, have to do, whatever. Now, of course, you can do more. So one thing too you can do is, yeah, you can spray a toner even before, or instead of using tap water, you could do that. So you can use that bottle of spring water. One of the best toners is apple cider vinegar. So get organic apple cider vinegar, and apparently Bragg's, PSA, Bragg's is no longer good because it was, apparently they're using the appeal apples in the
Lovely.
apple cider vinegar with that coating. Yeah. So, but there's lots out there. Anyway, and you don't do it straight. You want to dilute it. And again, just a casual dilution. You could do anywhere from like 10 to 30%. So you could put that in a spray bottle, and that's that little bit of an acid that helps. So you can do that. You can, we have frankincense and rosewater toners, which I love. Fulvic acid is also a beautiful toner. And you just put it in spray bottles. And then, yeah, and if you really want to moisturize, then you can go to a more concentrated serum. We have serums, we have like gel serums, sort of these sheer serums that are like, you know, not too oily, a little bit more watery, like in a good way, and or cream, a thick, rich cream. You know, we got eye cream, we got vitamin D cream. I mean, so yeah, you can go on. But really, if you just did the best skin ever, or that same version with olive oil or jojoba, I mean, miracles are going to happen.
I love it so much. I would love to ask you, what are some other things that you do in your own daily practice or have just maybe experimented throughout your life that you feel like hack your health? You've talked about before, like peptides, the sun, oral care. Could you talk about that in the perspective of, like biohacking or hacking your health in a
Mhm.
positive way?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like that's like all day long. All I'm thinking about is how do I hack my health in a positive way and have fun doing it. So for sure, I feel like the sun is essential to my skincare and my skin's vitality. Not to mention that being, you know, amply abundant with vitamin D is essential to over like 3,000 gene expressions in the body, and probably more. And it's very preventative for things like, you know, melanoma. So being in the sun, having ample vitamin D actually prevents that. And I do quote proper studies in the book on that. That's a whole other subject, but like, you know, don't be afraid of the sun. If for some reason you feel shy about putting your face in the sun, you know, you can always just do the rest of your body. And you want to build up to it too. We don't want to get burned, but we definitely don't want to be baking in the sun with chemicals on. So you got to find that window. And again, it could be like, you know, 10 minutes a day and you're building up, building up. I'm actually so amazed at like how long I can be in the sun without getting burnt now that I've sort of built it up over like 20 years. So definitely I feel like the sun is so essential. And really, nobody's going to say that in skincare, but it really is. And I feel like, again, you know, I'm in my 50s, so aging, you know, I'm in the age where you're definitely feeling changes from being 20, but the sun, I don't think is really aging me. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
I
you
feel like
look
it's loosening.
fabulous. Like, and like, I want to talk about your hair as well too, because you look like your
Oh,
hair
yeah.
is just so beautiful. But yeah, I agree. The sun is getting such a bad rep these days. And I always think of like going back to nature. And yes, there are some fun biohacks that you can do. Like, I don't think the ancient Egyptians necessarily had infrared saunas, which
No.
nowadays could be fun to do. But I think we always need to keep going back to, like, what is natural. It's natural to
Yes.
get the sun. It's not natural to lay out in tanning cream and burn, but we do need the sun, and we're in this weird phase of, like, the sun has become villainized.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For the past like 60 years, really since like the 1940s when chemicals started coming into play and sunscreen was invented. Prior to that, I mean, Mademoiselle Coco Chanel said, no outfit is complete without a tan. So, and now fashion is like, you know, be a porcelain doll, don't move your face, and may it be whiter than a ghost if you're white. You know what I mean? So it's like this, like, don't let the sun, you know, and then we're told like, you cannot like leave the house without sunblock, and you can't walk from like your car to the mall without like protection. And yeah, we do need the sun. Our skin needs the sun. There's so many biological reactions that happen, like even, you know, creating antimicrobial peptides. So, and it's this like inner lubricant that creates a very healthy cholesterol that our bodies need. But back to like going to nature, of course, that's what I use as my North Star. And kind of the general thesis of Renegade Beauty, my book, is looking at the elements, engaging with the elements more, especially now that we don't have to survive the elements. We have shelter, we have running water, you know, we can now engage with the elements, but that's like what's missing from our lives is like that cosmic connection. I think of it as the cosmoetics, like moon bathing, sun bathing, going forest bathing, lying on the earth. So we hopefully somehow can get that into our lives. And where I'm loving the biohacking and this modern moment is like the equipment that I'm attracted to is capturing the elements. So we're getting the red light concentrate, hydrogen, ozone, pulse electrical magnetic frequencies, PEMF, replicating the earth frequencies. So all of that is really tapping into and concentrating nature. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm thinking about biohacking. So that's sort of one area. And then hair, really fun. I have a really deep article. I mean, I go into it in my book and stuff, but I feel like I've learned a lot more in the past few years, especially with COVID, where it seems like we've had like a global hair shedding phenomenon, right? Because many people had reactions to the virus or other things, or maybe just the stress of being trapped in our homes or whatever, you know what I mean? So, but there's a lot of hair shedding, even statistically, like, you know, it's not just my observation, but there's been people saying, oh my God, everybody's like having global hair shedding. So, gone into that, helping people, like what needs to be done there. And so I've also been experimenting a lot with melatonin, and this ties in together. So I'm really liking melatonin. It's really neat. I didn't realize there's this whole like daytime situation with melatonin. This is what blew my mind. So we know of melatonin as sort of this nighttime secretion from the pineal gland, helps us sleep. That's only about 5% of the story. Where I thought all the melatonin came from there, but there's this biological production of melatonin in our mitochondria. So that's pretty key. And melatonin is very ancient. And what it seems to me is that melatonin and the mitochondria have been like ancient dance partners, and they're so important to each other. So ideally, what's supposed to happen biologically is we wake up, we go outside, and all over the earth when we wake up after sunrise is the near infrared light, the early morning red light. Tanning is created by the violet light, which is the end. So if you think of a rainbow, starts at red, ends with the violet. It's that top ray. So that comes a little bit later in the day, depending where you live on the planet. Right now it comes here at 9. You know, maybe in Hawaii right now it's at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then in the winter, we don't get any here. But really, even like Northern California, they're going to have 3 months that doesn't have vitamin D either. So you have to be, I think, below the 33rd parallel. Anyway, so the violet ray comes out later. That creates the tan. But the red light creates your daily production of melatonin in the mitochondria. And that is so vital to our health. And it's the master antioxidant. It's more potent than glutathione, more potent than vitamin C, vitamin E. So the melatonin in the mitochondria acts as like a cooling fluid for the production from, so ATP production, it's converting food into energy. That process always creates sort of byproducts. Even if you're super healthy, there's going to be free radicals created. And so the melatonin acts as like this dousing cooling agent to those, to that biological, whatever that's called, event. It's
Yeah.
happening all the time in our cells. So that's like, so we need the red light. So forget even about, so also, yeah, there's tanning from the sun, but there's like a whole menu of things from the sun, like each day. So you've got like sunrise has its own, you know, it's waking up the eyes, it's engaging. If you just look at the sun, you're going to activate amino acids, hormones, this melatonin. So that's really key. Then, you know, around noon, like then you can go out in the sun again and then get that vitamin D moment, the tanning, the purple ray, and then sunrise, sunset, you've got again other like amino acids being created. And so I feel like in an ideal day, I'm waking up, I'm seeing the sunrise, I'm in it, or I'm looking out, like, you know, opening the window. So you want to have glass, and now it's summer, I can just crawl out to the lake and I bring a blanket, which is great. Then I'll hopefully get to come out again, you know, right now, anywhere between like 11 and 1, I'll go out. I like going closer to noon. You really want to go till about solar noon. It's like, so, which is usually about 1:30 in areas. So that time from when the vitamin D comes to about the solar noon is like, it's juicier to get the vitamin D in the morning light. And so that's hopefully all happening on the ideal day with my sun engagement. And then I just sort of think like, you know, it's just sort of like the day then just sort of shapes your activity, you know, and you go sunset. And I also feel it's like a birthday cake. So every day you get to, you know, use sunset or sunrise as sort of like a way to meditate or make wishes, appreciate what's going on. It's a really good moment. But yeah, so back to the sunscreen. Oh yeah, the melatonin. Okay, so melatonin also, so I tried it a couple times at night, like 10 years ago, and like just, you know, one pill, and I'm like, oh, and I didn't feel like I slept, and I felt hungover the next day. And then, so apparently that's how about 30% of the population feels about that, you know, taking melatonin at night. So those people, if you take it like at sunset or before, or you can even take it during the day, it will still work at night and you don't get sleepy. It's so strange how it works in the day. And so if you take it in the day, it's actually such an amazing internal sunscreen. Like you won't get burnt. I mean, again, it depends on the amount. It really helps create sun protection and harmonize those sun's rays. So I've been experimenting a lot with that. And then also noticed more hair growth. Again, I've always pretty much had like, you know, happy, healthy, thick hair. I've been very lucky, but it was just like more and more. And so melatonin is a really good situation if you are having hair shedding. Also combined with spermidine, which I actually did an interview on because I just found it to be the most beautifying supplement I'd ever tried in my whole life. And I feel like I've tried all the supplements. And it really is such an anti-aging supplement. You want to get the real spermidine, not synthetic. There's a lot of synthetic stuff now, and it's not going to be the same. But spermidine takes care of 6 of the 9 hallmarks of aging on such a major level. And people feel if their hair is shedding, usually it helps to help it stop within a week. And
So
then people will get the baby hairs.
what is it as a supplement?
So
Is it like a powder?
yeah, so it used to be, yeah, well, it used to be so hard to extract that like for years people were like, how do we extract it? And you'd have to take like probably about 40 algae pills apparently to get like a little bit. Spermidine's in everything, like every plant, every food, and it's in breast milk. And yes, it is in sperm. It is this polyamine that's just essential to all life. So I think that's why, you know, even a few decades ago, people knew like if they could extract it, it would be anti-aging. And so my friend's company, Leslie, over at Oxford Healthspan, they make the best product because it doesn't go rancid and it's the only natural non-rancid one because they remove the fatty oils. So they have 2 varieties. One is from chlorella, the algae, and it is gluten-free. And then one is made from like the germ of the wheat germ of like an organic wheat. Apparently people that don't eat gluten though do okay with it because I don't think it has, yeah, again, because it's sort of this extract of the extract.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and I took that one for years, but I do prefer the algae one just because it isn't from that. But I really had no issue. I don't do gluten at all, but I didn't have any issues with the other one. And people like their eyelashes grow. A lot of people find like hair comes back and it's not gray. So it's really quite amazing. And it's amazing for skin, hair, nails. Like you will just, like you will see a change in like 6 days. It's pretty incredible. So when you combine that with the melatonin, there's amazing hair growth. But then I discovered something even more fun. Like also, first of all, if it is shedding, it may feel like you don't want to wash your hair because you're probably like, because it will probably loosen even more and you kind of want to keep every hair strand. That's, you know, how you feel when that's happening. But you really want to keep up the washing. Like, so almost like every day, every other day. Like if you're a guy with like 1 inch of hair, look, wash it every day.
Oh no.
Especially if you've got dandruff, because it will free up the hair. What happens is we get a buildup on our scalp, hormones, like just stuff, shitty shampoo, sorry, not good
That's okay.
shampoo also. So we got to, like, I'm kind of like into less, and if you don't have to wash your hair that much, like don't. But if you have any scalp issue, any kind of flakiness, itchiness, hair shedding, anything, then you've really got to tend to the garden of the scalp because that's what's growing the hair. So when we get all this buildup, then the pores start to close. And this is like how male pattern baldness starts as well. It's like that. And they have more DHT. They're not processing their testosterone properly if this is happening in men, generally speaking. And you can even actually, there's like a certain smell, as gross as it sounds, to the scalp that's happening to on a guy. Like you can just tell. Anyway, so you got to keep it clear to keep the pores open. Otherwise, they close. And as they close, the hair is getting thinner and thinner because it's not getting the supply. And then eventually it just closes. That pore closes, and then there's no more hair coming out. So, but that's obviously like that's different. And alopecia and hair shedding isn't quite like that. But again, it will close and the hair will get thinner and it's not getting the nutrients it needs. So you really want to stay on top of your scalp, and hair oiling is good. You can oil before you shampoo. Baking soda is also good, especially if you have been using a not so good shampoo. So you combine a little baking soda with the shampoo and you really get it in there to like clear off because the other shampoo is leaving residue all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the conditioners, it could be leaving residue. So when you're washing, it's really about the scalp. You're not really washing your hair. Obviously, it'll get clean. I mean, it'll get suds through it, but you don't have to work the shampoo through your hair. It'll just happen. What you really want to do is work on the scalp. So probably like spend 5 minutes. It may seem like a lot. You want to have tired arms. You want to make sure those finger pads are right on the scalp, working it. Then obviously you rinse. There's another time when you could do an apple cider rinse as well, like before the conditioner. That's really good. But here's the tip that I think makes hair grow like a weed. Again, you're going to have to test melatonin and also amounts, because there's a lot of people that are okay with higher doses. So if you look at the work of Dr. Russell Ryder and Dr. John Lawrence, you can totally rabbit hole their podcasts. And Dr. Russell Ryder has been studying melatonin since he was 24. He's 84 now. And he has like awesome lectures on YouTube if you really want to geek out for 2 hours. And then you can really see the parameters. There's no negative feedback loop for melatonin, so it doesn't dull your own production, like taking another hormone like testosterone would. It would dull your own production. So there is no negative feedback loop. And it seems that there is no toxic level, and that we can actually like handle more than just that 1 microgram at night for that thing. You know what I mean? So there are other ways to use it, but that you want to explore because it's definitely a little more avant-garde. And then, but melatonin is very anti-aging, and it's very good for like, the beauty things like skin and hair and nails. So then, and just like on Amazon or eBay, you can find these like hair root applicators. So there's this one I had, like it's on there. It's like pink, and then there's like 5, kind of like a comb at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one the best. It's like $5. It's so easy. You get 3 for $5, and you take a milliliter, so about 20 drops of rosemary, 25 drops of rosemary. We have both the rosemary officinalis and the rosemary verbenum. I love both of those. You do want to use a genuine rosemary, and you do want to know, are you okay with rosemary kind of straight up on your scalp or your skin? So test that first. Usually if it's real and good, it will be okay. I know the Living is good. Test it on like the inner elbow or on a little drop on your scalp. Make sure it's not irritating. Then you're going to take like half a teaspoon of melatonin powder, which you can buy in bulk. Again, good old Amazon, or but it's from bulk supplements. They're really good. They're just pure, no excipients, and it's going to last you forever because you're just doing a little bit of time. So you put that in the little applicator bottle, you add your 20, 25 drops of rosemary, you shake that, and it will sort of quickly dissolve. And it's a good way to dissolve the melatonin because it doesn't quite mix with water. Then you just add like 20 mil to about 30 mil, which is about an ounce of spring water, good water, distilled water, just like good, just not municipal tap water. Then you give that a shake. And then you just apply that in your hair before bed or like in the afternoon, later in the day. And it just makes your hair a bit wet, but not oily, which is also very handy. And you just do that each night for a few nights, or I mean, you can keep doing it, but you will definitely be like a little chia pet head.
I love this.
And new baby hairs will come in. I don't know if the chia pet was an older reference, but that's
I think everybody gets what you were saying. No, I love
yes.
that. I feel like I could talk to you about so much and so many different hacks and beauty hacks and everything, but I want to be incredibly mindful of your time. Is there a book or podcast or another sort of resource that you have found to be invaluable in your own journey that you would like to share with the audience?
For like health things.
It could be really
Yeah.
related to health, it could be related to beauty, it could be related to just anything that you've given us, that podcast with Dr. Russell Ryder
Oh,
and
yeah.
things, but is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Well, I would say we didn't talk about peptides, but my friend Natalie Needham has a podcast called Longevity, and she has just some of the best peptide podcasts. So I would just like, you can really go deep with peptides on her podcast, especially the ones with Bill Lawrence, because they talk about the peptide bioregulators. And there's one in there, the endolutin, which is the pineal gland peptide, which also is amazing for hair growth.
Oh,
So that trifecta of spermidine, melatonin, endolutin is amazing. And plus, like, it's really, really anti-aging, and they've had it around since the 80s. That's a long story you'll hear about in the podcast, but it is anti-aging. And we do our blood test to check out the telomere length, our biological age. We do a test that tests over 900,000 DNA methylation sites. And my clock is reversing, and I do think it has a lot to do with the melatonin and the endolutin.
I feel like I'm gonna have to have you come back on for part 2 with peptides and oral health, and I feel like we could have kept going with beauty hacks and
And the
beauty
sun.
secrets and the sun. But Nadine, this has been an incredible conversation with you. If people want to check out the book that you've written, because I know you've written 2, if people want to maybe look at Living Libations, where can everybody go and find you?
We have livinglibations.com, and there are quite a few articles on there and some podcast links. And if you just go on podcasts, I've done enough, like you'll see them, or YouTube. So there's that for resources. And then Renegade Beauty is got the hard copy on our website or wherever books are sold. Plus there's Audible, and there's also an Audible of holistic dental care, my earlier book. It's also now in like 5 or 6 languages,
Wow.
which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Renegade Beauty is too big apparently to translate. And there's a really good dental chapter in Renegade Beauty, so you even really just start there.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
funny. I actually it's in my Amazon cart right now. I do have to order it because it's this
Oh,
world
I
is
think
so
you'll like it.
fascinating to me of, being more holistic. And I do feel like the pendulum is swinging back to being more holistic, but I feel like
For some of us.
Yeah, there's still baby steps, and for myself personally, like the oral hygiene is one that I'm have been the most scared about dipping my toe into because I'm like it's
Oh,
been working
oh.
for me, like I'm afraid
Yeah.
to rock that boat, but I'm like I
Oh, it's
want
not. If
to.
you're already in good shape, it's only going to take it further.
Oh, see, okay, that's what I need to hear. Perfect.
For example, like pretty much every toothpaste has sodium lauryl sulfate in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like why? If you again just like use baking soda for the rest of your life, you'd be far better off than any tube of drugstore or like Listerine, which was originally created as a cleaner. And that kind of mouthwash creates over 80,000 cases of oral cancer a year, or maybe it's
Lovely.
36,000. I'm not sure. I can't remember the stat. That's from
More
10 years
than
ago
one is
anyway.
a problem.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it's amazing. That's not a hidden stat. And that
Wow.
just continues. But
You'd be very happy to hear that I kicked my Listerine habit a few years ago, but
oh,
the rest of it I'm like,
good.
but
Well,
Nadine,
then
this
maybe we have to have a podcast so that you can on just oral care.
yes, I
So
would
that you
love
can,
that.
yeah.
I would love that so much. Nadine, where can everybody find you personally online? And once again, if you want to just let us know where we can get Living Libations.
Yeah. So on our website, livinglibations.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Nadine Artemis.
Perfect. I will make sure everything is linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and
Thank
sharing your
you.
expertise.
Thank you. Take care.